I would like to focus our attention on three phrases that are in the full reading today in Ephesians, which was not read in the shorter reading tonight. And that is this: He ascended on high, He took captivity captive, and He gave gifts to men. He ascended on high, He took captivity captive, and He gave gifts to men. Now, what kind of language is this? This is the language of ancient warfare. And to illustrate this, I would like to give you a little bit of a history lesson on one of the most famous battles of all time. And that is the Battle of Salamis. You may have heard of it. You see, King Xerxes was the proud emperor of the whole world, from India all the way deep into Africa, throughout Egypt, and to the Mediterranean. But there were the pesky Greeks who were giving him problems. Now, his father, 10 years before, was defeated by the hands of the Greeks at Marathon. You may have heard of that. And so Xerxes said, this time I'm going to get it right. I am going to prepare. So he spent 3 whole years preparing for this battle. And he even had his engineers create a bridge across the Hellespont. Now, where this bridge was built, the continent of Asia and the continent of Europe were separated by this waterway. And the waters there connect the waters of the Dead Sea with the Mediterranean, and they're treacherous. And so he skillfully had his engineers take 700 boats, tie them up side by side, fill them up with earth, tie them together with ropes, and made a highway across the Hellespont. And hundreds of thousands of troops from all his nations went across this. And then hundreds of thousands of other people who were there to support them. And they were so sure of their victory that they took along with them their valuables. They took a golden throne, which Xerxes was going to observe the victories. And they go off, and as they come down through Greece, that they came through Thermopylae, right? And that is where they met the 300 Spartans. That slowed them down a little bit, but they got through that all right, and they came into the mainland of Greece, and there, on the edge of the channel of Salamis, Xerxes set up his golden throne, and before him was his mighty fleet. He was going to see the destruction of the Greeks. But the Greeks were better situated, and they had better boats. And actually, the way that it was all planned out by the Greeks, they surprised the Persians, and they came, and they crushed their boats right before Xerxes. And with a matter of hours, his whole fleet was destroyed, and the waters were filled with the carnage of his boats. Well, Xerxes had a problem. He had a mighty army, that's right, but now he thought, oh my goodness, with my fleet destroyed, the Greeks are going to go around and they're going to destroy the bridge. And if they destroy the bridge, then I'm stuck here. What did he do? He just left everything, and they all just fled across land to get to the bridge. You can imagine how the Greeks felt. They had all the spoils of war. I wonder who got Xerxes' throne. You know? And they probably had a huge procession up into Athens, and that's what they did. You know, they had a procession. They ascend up to the places of their worship, and they give the gifts. They give the spoils to those who are deserving. The spoils of war. Now, something like this has happened with Jesus. We, before Christ came, we humans, we were dominated by Xerxes. Now, that's symbolic for Satan, sin, and death. And there's nothing we can do about it. As a matter of fact, there were no Greeks to come and save us. Nothing. So God sent his son, Jesus Christ, incarnate in the flesh, as a champion. You know, back in the ancient warfare, when two armies came together, often, rather than fight it all out, they would have a champion. And the great example of this in the Bible is David, who is a figure of Christ, against Goliath. And David slew Goliath, and the enemies fled. And the Israelites took the spoil. So with Christ's death and resurrection and conquering sin and death, he ascends to the Father in power. Now you might say, Father John, that makes a nice story, but I don't know if I really believe it. I hope I believe it. I don't know if it's true. It might just sound like a story to me. Well, that is answered by the next phrase. He gave gifts to man. He gave gifts to man. That proves it's all true. Now, you may think back and say, what was my most favorite gift I ever had? I'm sure you all had a favorite gift that you still remember, right? Don't you? Mine was when I was 16 years old. And I went to visit my grandfather in California. I didn't see him very much. But I remember coming in the house and he said, Johnny, since you've got red hair just like my mother, believe it or not, I used to have red hair, I'm going to give you a pound of gold. I go, whoa, a pound of gold. I couldn't believe it. I never even saw gold, really, but a pound of gold, what's this about? So he goes in the back of the room, he comes out, and believe it or not, he comes out with a pound of gold. He had 100 peso gold Mexican coin, the size of a silver dollar. And that was on a big old heavy gold chain. And then there was a watch on it. I'll never forget that. My eyes got big as saucers. Like, maybe this came from Xerxes' stash, you know? But you know, I still have the watch. It doesn't work. The gold chain and the gold coin are long gone. You know, I mean, it's a nice memory and everything, but it really wasn't until the next year when I was 17 that I really got the gift of my lifetime. You know what that was? A spiritual gift. I was all alone by myself in the mountains of Colorado in a ravine. And I was out there, and quite frankly, though I was baptized, I was a Christian, my life wasn't going anywhere. I was dominated by my own fears and everything else. And God just went like this. He touched me. And when he touched me, he gave me a gift. And you know, you can't see these gifts with the eye, like the gold watch and stuff. But if you have the eyes, like the apostle said in our readings today, to enlighten our eyes so we may see, these spiritual gifts are rich and rare, and they sparkle and radiate a glory that's not of this earth. Again, we can't see it with our physical eyes, but we can see it when it's within us and it works its way out to others. That's what spiritual gifts do. I had no idea at the time that this could even happen. But how could it happen to me? Because Christ ascended on high and he gives gifts to men. Now he gives gifts to all of us. He gives gifts to us at baptism. He gives gifts to us at confirmation. He gives gifts to us throughout our lives. And sometimes we sort of bury them down deep inside of us, and they sort of go undetected by others. And we're not even sure they're there ourselves. That's why the apostle says, I pray for you that the eyes of your heart might be enlightened, and you may see what you have. Nothing authenticates more the story of Jesus than this. He gives gifts to men. It's the living proof that everything about Jesus that we preach and read is true. It's true. And so that is what God has for us today in our Ascension homily. Pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened. And you may see the treasures and the gifts that are within. And you know, as they stir up within us, and they start glowing with supernatural life and power, others around will see this. Others will be encouraged. The church will be built up. And we will be filled with the joy of God.